I'm joined now by Sean Spicer, and it's a rare sight at a Democratic convention in the Lion's Den. Daniel in the Lion's Den.
This is great, man. Thanks for having me.
Good to see you, sir. Let's get straight to what we just heard there.
Right, I'd love to.
I mean, Donald Trump at that press conference encouraging Russia. He says, Russia, if you're listening, I encourage you to go ahead and try to find these emails. What's your take on that?
Well, first, he did subsequently say, and turn them over to the FBI. But the thing that I find so funny about that statement from the Clinton campaign is they're talking about national security. National security should have been thought about when Hillary Clinton put a secret server in her house, didn't use a state.gov email, and then the FBI found out that there was classified information susceptible to foreign hacking, and now they're worried about national security. The national security concern should have happened a while ago. The DNC, there's multiple issues here. Number one, the DNC email hacking scandal, they're upset primarily because of what they wrote. It's not about the hacking. The fact of the matter is they rigged the system, they got caught. Number two, when it comes to Russia and Hillary Clinton and subsequently the foundation, have both probably have classified information on them as well. That should be the problem. The idea that these guys are deflecting that and blaming someone else. It was Hillary Clinton that set up a secret server. It was Hillary Clinton that allowed classified information that get on there. It was Hillary Clinton that sent classified information and received it. So at the end of the day, these guys, going back 30 years, every scandal that the Clintons have been involved in, it's somebody else's fault.
So, all right. So James Comey, the FBI director, says that they believe that Hillary Clinton was grossly negligent.
That's right.
Was Donald Trump grossly negligent in calling for Russia to hack into?
He didn't. No, but that's not what he did. So what he said is, if you are listening and if you have them, you should turn them over. I mean, that's ridiculous.
He didn't say that there. He said that after.
But my point is, we're worried about what Donald Trump's response is. When are we going to start paying attention to what Hillary Clinton did? When are we going to start saying she signed the form at the State Department saying that I wasn't going to release classified information, that I was going to uphold the rules and regulations that are bound by people who accept classified information? At some point, the conversation really needs to turn to, there are two candidates. One of them was given the trust of the United States government to uphold when it came to security matters and failed. And the answer is, we keep asking, well, what's Donald Trump going to do? At some point, the question has to become, there are two candidates, and one of them has already violated the public's trust.
But here's the question, I think, Sean. A lot of people are looking and saying, look, and as the RNC, are you saying, when is he going to talk about some of the issues that are facing Americans? I mean, he's done some of that, but when you do a press conference like this and you talk about the email hack and then you talk about Vladimir Putin using the N-word, you try to silence a reporter. For you, isn't it frustrating that the issues are not on display?
He gave an
lot more?
Look, we had an entire speech the other night on the issues, and everyone in the press said it was too long. You can't have it both ways. He talks about the issues. Everyone says you talk too long. He doesn't talk about the issues. You say when he's going to talk about the issues. He gave a great speech. The American people rewarded him because they thought he did. He came out of that on a CNN poll with 76% approving of it. He's leading in the polls. Every day of this national convention, we go up and up and up with the polling.
So he also, as I said, mentioned or implied that Russian President Vladimir Putin used the N-word to describe President Obama. Is the party going to respond to that?
I have no idea. Isn't
that distracting from some of the things that you and your supporters are passionate about?
Well, again, I'd rather be talking about Hillary Clinton, what she's doing here. I think that there is when you talk about Russia, you look at, it was Clinton that talked about the Russian reset. It was Bill Clinton that got $500,000 for giving a speech over there. It's the Clinton Foundation that has connections to Russia. So Trump has no connection to Russia. He's never met Putin, and yet we're having a conversation about Trump's relationship with him. It's the Clintons that have been in bed with the Russians and been in bed with the Russian government. All
right, so there have been calls for Hillary Clinton to release the transcripts of the speeches that she made on to Wall Street banks. Donald Trump's campaign manager today said that he's definitively not going to release his tax return, something that every president has done in the last 40 years. Should he?
Well, he's released his financial disclosure forms with the Federal Election Commission, which are frankly more in depth. They talk about every debt you have, every piece of property you own.
So then why not just release the tax return?
That's up to him. He's made the point that he's under IRS audit and he doesn't want to do it until it's done. That's his call. He has released what is required by law, which is frankly more in depth than a tax return would show. It shows every holding that you have and every debt that you owe.
Is your office busier than it has been in times past with presidential candidates for the Republican ticket, in that you are always constantly going up in front of members of the press and having to answer for some of these things that some people say are distracting?
Well, I think it's definitely a different election cycle than it has been before. But, I mean, we're equally going out there blasting Hillary Clinton and her record. And now with Tim Kaine on the ticket, it's the same deal. We're trying to talk about the fact that these guys, the only thing they're changing is their position on issues. They're flip-flopping on everything they do. They're trying to make themselves into something they're not. This is the most established establishment status quo ticket in the history of this country.
All right, let me play a little bit from that press conference again, what Donald Trump told to NBC reporter Katie Turd. Take a listen.
Look, here's the problem. Here's the problem, Katie. Katie, here's the problem. Very simple. He has no respect.
You said I welcome them to find those 30,000.
Well, they probably have them. I'd like to have them released.
Does that not give you pause?
No, gives me no pause. If they have them, they have them. We might as well find. Hey, you know what gives me more pause? That a person in our government, crooked Hillary Clinton, here's what gives me more. Be quiet. I know you want to, save her. That a person in our government, Katie, would delete or get rid of 33,000 emails. That gives me a big problem.
Now, Mr. Trump was correct in one thing. Hillary Clinton hasn't given a press conference in over 200 days, something like 235 days. But should somebody who's running for the presidency, who's accountable to the people and accountable to the freedom of the press, you're a communications guy, it's the bedrock of our democracy, telling a reporter to be quiet?
Well, again, if you look at what Katie was doing, she asked him a question, he was trying to answer it. She kept interrupting the answer to the question. At some point, if you're going to ask a question, right now, you're allowing me to answer the question. At some point, she kept yelling back at him. He has a right to say, be quiet, let me answer the question you're asking. It's a give and take, So he was polite about it. But again, I think the point he's making, there are 33,000 emails. Mrs. Clinton has made it very clear that they're about yoga and Chelsea's wedding, so I'm really not sure what the problem is. If she was telling the truth, we're going to get a ton of things about downward dog.
All right. Let's talk about something serious here. Gun control is going to be a big topic tonight here at the DNC. The speakers include 2 survivors of the Charleston, South Carolina church shooting, a young woman whose mother died in the attack at Sandy Hook Elementary School. What are you going to be listening for in some of those speeches, you and other Republican leaders?
Well, a couple things. One is, there's a lot of issues going on in our country now. We've got some race problems. But it's interesting that not one fallen police officer's widow or husband is here today to talk about the law enforcement side of that. I think it's a really big omission on their part. We still hear very few mentions, if any, on ISIS or terrorism. It's interesting that at this point in time, domestically and foreign and overseas, we're facing all of these national security, violence type issues, and this convention seems to sort of gloss over what.
Well, the chief of police of Pittsburgh spoke last night about that, and they also had Joseph Feeney from the NYPD, right. One of their first responders during 9/11.
But I mean, they're not talking about the security piece that we're facing. We face existential, asymmetrical threats, both foreign and domestic. We saw it in Orlando and Dallas. Police are under fire for the first time in my lifetime, in a way. I mean, there are literally the idea that the people who protect and serve us have to worry about whether average everyday Americans, whether it's not just at they have a hard enough time going up to a regular traffic stop. Now to think that they're being targeted is unbelievable that we've come to that place in this country.
Do you think that we've, Sean, come to a place also in our country where there's a lack of civility in politics? Jeff Flake, a Republican senator from Arizona, when Tim Kaine was announced as Hillary Clinton's vice presidential pick, tweeted out something very nice about him, said,
right.
I'm trying to come up with something terrible to say about him. Can't.
Right.
Congrats for my friend. I mean, you and I are old enough to remember, Tip O'Neill and Ronald Reagan, 2 men who were politically as opposed as you can imagine on the spectrum, and then after what was said and done in front of the cameras, could go behind closed doors and really enjoy beer. Not a beer that was for the cameras, but one for themselves.
Right. I think, look, if you look back on the history of our country, Burr and Jefferson went at it epically. They used to create newspapers to go after people and write editorials under pseudonyms. So that all being said, I'd still rather have a much more civil discussion. I'm a social and fiscal conservative. I believe that we have a better path for this country. I'd rather have a civil discussion on the issues where I think we lay out our case and bring people into a party that grows, that we're a welcoming party. That's where I am. I think that's where Chairman Priebus is. But I understand that politics is a contact sport sometimes.
All right. Sean Spicer, thanks so much for coming by.
Thanks,
really
Vlad. I like your place. This
Thank
is a nice
dig.
dig.
Yeah, right. We have nice digs here for CBSN.
That's right.
Appreciate it.